Welcome to A Mile Deep with me, Ben Owen. How are you doing, team? Today we're going to go into leadership and the 4 traits that are absolutely essential for a leader to succeed in his work or her work, her life, and their love. Now, if you think about this, one of the things that people often come to me for is to work on their leadership. They're not leading in an area of their life. So whether that's their relationship at home, their business relationships, their relationship with something, like all coaching is relational. You're changing your relationship with something. If you think about how your relationship to the gym might be a negative one. So when you work with a coach, what you do is you change your relationship with the gym. It's the same with your goals. Like, for example, a lot of people have a very, very negative relationship with goals because they set goals and they never achieve them. And that's why coaching is so powerful when it comes to changing your relationship with things like goals. Now, what I'm going to be doing in the next couple of podcasts, I don't know how many podcasts it's going to last for. I think it'll be 4, is I'm going to go through the 4 real important traits a leader needs to have and how they are interrelated. Now, what I've noticed in working with high-performing leaders in teams and organizations and sport is I've often come across this kind of experience with a lot of people where they perform really high in one area, but they struggle in another. And I'll just give you a quick example, high level for this. One of the things we're going to talk about today is self-leadership, the ability to see a vision for your future, to see where you're going, to be able to forge relationships, to help you move forward and to direct yourself and your life. Now, I've come across a lot of self-directed people who are very, very good. They know that they want to go and do these challenges and they want to achieve these amazing things in their life. Yet when it comes to things like the first obstacle, the first challenge that they meet, or doing the thing every day, day in, day out to help them achieve, that's when they fall down because they haven't cultivated the self-discipline. So they've perhaps done really well because they are very self-led. They're very good at seeing a vision. They're very, very good at articulating about where they're going. And that's perhaps brought them to the position that they are in their company, in their business, in their own business, in their life. Yet it's been the discipline that's been the letdown. And what happens is there's a certain amount of traits or experience in this. I've got some stuff in front of me as well to help me with this because I think it's really important because there's a lot of traits, this personal experience, if they have that mismatch. And what I want to share in these next podcasts is how to identify them in yourself and what the work is. But first, we're going to look at the symptoms. So in this first podcast today, we're going to talk about self-leadership and self-discipline. Now, I think why this one is the most important one is when I've done work with the 10X group, when I've worked one-on-one with a lot of people, it's almost like I don't set goals because I'm either afraid I won't achieve them, I've set them in before and I've not achieved them, or I don't know how to set goals. And one of the first things that I've often gone in and done with a lot of people is gone in and helped them create ways to become more self-led. Now, what that means is having a vision for your future, then actively going about creating it. Now, sometimes some people haven't even sat down and done that work. They haven't even sat down and think, like, what do I really want? What's my plan? What's my 3-year plan? What does my perfect day look like? These are all exercises that I do inside the space of coaching. Now, one of the things I'm creating is something called the Mile Deep Mastermind. It's what I'm talking about in these next couple of podcasts, a mile deep. I'm really going to go deep with 5 women and 5 men. And so if you're listening at any point, you're thinking, hang on a second, this would be really helpful for me to learn a bit more. Just use I'm actually fully on Spotify now. There's a comments section on Spotify. Just reach out to me with the word a mile deep and I'll send you more information, because I think that so many people, especially leaders, they are very good at one of these 4, maybe 2 of these 4, but I've never really experienced many leaders who have all 4 things in place. I'll just quickly go over what they are. They are self-leadership, self-discipline, self-development, and self-love. Now, when you have all these four things optimized, those four characteristics will create an unstoppable force. I can see where I've got to do my work. I can see where I'm very strong. I can see where I dominate. And if I want to become a well-rounded leader that gets results year in, year out, grows my life, I can't rely on just being good in one area. So, like I said, I want to talk specifically about one mismatch, which is self-led, but not self-disciplined. Now, if somebody has self-leadership, but not discipline, they'll likely exhibit inconsistency because they might set goals and take initiative, but they haven't got the structural discipline to what I call operationalize those. If you've listened to the 10X podcast, I've talked about operationalizing things, is that a self-led person has the big vision, but the skill set of turning that vision into step-by-step things that go in the calendar is a real struggle. And I've met so many people in my life who are those people. They are like, I've got these big dreams, these big visions, these big wishes, and yet turning them into step-by-step habits and practices and rituals and things that go in the calendar and meetings and all that sort of stuff, that is what they struggle with most. This makes them very inconsistent because what happens is they get the dopamine, they get the really excited, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to create this. We're going to do this. The company's going to go this way. And they get all inspired, and Dusan Djukic would call them a zigzag person. They get really inspired, but when it becomes to taking action, they drop and fall. And I can spot that in myself. I can spot it in clients. If you probably listen to this, you probably spot this in yourself too. But what you end up is this boom or bust motivational system where you're tired and burnt out. Now, actually, one of the things that Dusan says in Straight Line Leadership is that you become addicted to start-up energy. This is because you can see the big vision, but then you can't take the self-direction to then call in your self-discipline to go and take the action. Now, if you look at Jungian psychology, this is the relationship between the king and the warrior. So the king is the visionary, the sovereign. If you're a female, the sovereign is the visionary, and then the warrior is the doer. And there's got to be a really good relationship between those two parts, right? And you have those parts in you. Now, one of the things that you have to cultivate is your ability to direct yourself, to really create a plan, and then be able to move yourself into do what I call non-negotiable actions that to get it done, no matter what you're feeling. Because sometimes when you take an action and things aren't working out, you do have that tendency to say, I feel demotivated, I feel down. And that is when you most need to take action. Honestly, it's like I've seen this in my career when I really don't want to do something and I've done it, I'm just going to do it. That's when the results have come out. Quick story, I was in a mastermind once. It was 11 o'clock at night. We've been creating email campaigns and learning about email. And he said, right, you're going to, the leader of the mastermind said, right, you're going to send that one. I was like, no, I'm tired. I'm too late. He said, send the darn email. It's just and I was like, no. I was really, really resistant because A, I was tired. B, I didn't feel like it. And C, I didn't think it was going to have an effect. I got a sale directly from that email that made me £5,000, maybe more, £1,000 in front-end sales and back-end sales. So sometimes we've got to have that ability to move into action. Another symptom that you'll experience if you have got high self-leadership and low self-discipline is procrastination. Because what happens is there is an innate feeling that you don't trust yourself to keep going. So sometimes I think, especially with the social media culture, I see these people that will come out and they'll say, hey, I haven't posted in a while. I'm going to post every day for the next 30 days. And then they'll do maybe 3 posts and then they won't post again. Or they'll have a team meeting and they'll say, right, we're going to do this as a team. And it gets hard after 3 days and they stop doing it. And they've done that so many times that now they have that feeling or that fear that that's going to happen again, it leads to procrastination. It leads to that big old, what I call the emotional elephant, digging in its heels saying, I don't want that feeling of letting the team down. I don't want that embarrassment of saying I'm going to show up and not showing up. So the person who's got self-leadership without self-discipline, they notice the importance of taking charge of and setting objectives, but they delay the necessary actions. I've got that written here, especially when tasks are challenging or require sustained effort. And that's the thing, the sustained effort, the compounding effort is what I find most people struggle with. It's like, oh God, I've got to do that. Oh, and it's that one day that you miss and then you don't follow up the next day. And I really struggled with that for a long period of time. And I think what happens is that you get so, you set a standard that's so high, you've got no way of hitting it. So what I would do is like, I don't want to be a perfectionist, I want to be an optimalist. So instead of saying, I'm going to post 7 days out of 7, I just say like, oh, what can I post on? What can I possibly post on the first week? How many times can I take action what I said I was going to do in the first week? And I measure against that every single week. The goal might be 5, 7, 50 reach outs, 10 conversations, whatever you're trying to create. But you don't always have to reach perfection. And I think perfectionism is the fuel for procrastination. You might want to write that down. Perfectionism is the fuel for procrastination. When I'm less perfect and wanting to be perfect, I get them into action. Like today I was overthinking like how many podcasts I should be doing on this topic and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, Ben, just turn on the camera and the microphone and start talking and you're normally fine. So remember that one. And the final one is impulsiveness. And it's actually really difficult to deal with a leader who's impulsive all the time, but lacks the structure to put in place. And I've worked with coaching clients who are very impulsive. They fire off in different directions, but what they haven't got is the warrior or the self-discipline to just hold on to that energy and say, no, we're not doing this right now because it's not in the long-term plan. And I think there's a dance. I think there's a real dance as a leader between trusting a gut intuition that sometimes you have to go, right, this isn't working, we're going to do something totally opposite. And I get that sometimes that is necessary. However, what I notice more often is this impulsive, distracted behavior that absolutely cripples productivity. Now, I've got an unpopular opinion about this, and I'm going to share it with you because I think it will help you. Now, there are more people than ever that are diagnosing themselves or even self-diagnosing themselves with ADHD and ADD and all these attention deficit disorders. And I agree that in the modern day climate, holding your attention on something for a prolonged period of time is difficult. Now, I think it's the same people who would have come into my office and said, I've got a hormonal condition, there's something wrong with my thyroid, there is a intolerance, and they would blame everything bar doing the actual work. Now, those same people probably didn't, the people who've got ADHD might not struggle with the weight, but what they're doing is the same practice. Is that they're not doing things that help constrain their impulsive attitude, behaviors, thoughts, and habits. Like giving in to impulse is one of the biggest weapons of part X, which is a part of you that's there to stop you. So if you think about this, if there's a part of you that's impulsive and sprays your attention everywhere, you need this strong, boundary-driven part of you to grab hold of that and say, no, let's stay on task. And I think making sure that you're working on both of those as a leader, especially, and not just an individual, as a leader is vital for your team, because there is nothing more frustrating than a leader that fires off in different directions. The team don't know where they're going. I remember getting feedback from my team once saying, Ben, we don't know where we're going with you at the moment. You're firing off in different directions. It's extremely difficult. Are we doing this sale? Are we doing this campaign? And I remember saying, I'm really, really sorry. And I changed immensely to become a campaign-driven leader, where I knew exactly what I was selling. We sold one thing, or a permutation of one thing for a period of time, checked in, recalibrated, and then moved on to the next thing. And that gave my team so much more brain space, capacity, prediction, response. Whereas if you're a leader that fires off in different directions, it is a very, very hard to be led by you. So that's what happens when you've got high self-leadership but low self-discipline. But what about the inverse? So this is where you've got high self-discipline but low self-leadership. So you might be very disciplined, but you are not good at telling yourself where you need to go. So what's going to happen is you're going to have an over-reliance on external direction. Like you will need a manager, a mentor. You're always looking for someone to tell you what to do. And that was me. Oh my God, as I say it, I can feel it. I can remember externalizing all of my power as a leader to my mentor, my coach, my business partners. And that's what I call is giving up your internal throne. You've given up your internal throne to somebody else because you're thinking they're going to tell you what to do, what you want. So someone, specifically, you might be a very, very disciplined leader, but if you're not being self-led, where you know where you're going, you've got plans, you've got clear visions, you've got your perfect day, you know where you're going, you will naturally default and find someone else to tell you or give you their version of what they think that you should be doing. And that's a very big problem, I think, in the coaching industry. I think a lot of people sign up with mentors and coaches thinking that that's what they're going to get. And it's the biggest disservice you can do as a coach. The second thing you're going to experience is lack of vision. Now, you might actually excel at sticking to routines, and this is something that I've noticed with a lot of people that will stay in middle management, for example. They're very good at sticking to process, sticking to routines, doing things day in, day out. But the reason that they'll stick in there, get bored and have career burnout, or they get bored of their business, is because there's a lack of vision. There's what I would call expansive discipline. But what's happened is the warrior's just doing its job, the doer is doing, and there's not much space for seeing and visionary stuff. And I think this is where things like retreats and things like taking time out of your day-to-day come in really, really handy, because this is why I've actually created a really nice retreat in the Maldeep Mastermind, because coming to Dubai, getting out of your own way, spending some time thinking about what you really want in your life is absolutely imperative for a leader, because it stops that overactive disciplinarian mindset and allows you to cultivate that self-led person. And then the final thing is passivity. Now, what happens, and I'll read this, is that you might be very good at maintaining order and consistency in your actions, but could be passive in driving change and innovation. And what that means is you get very, very good at drilling your system, but not very good at innovating it. So you almost become passive. It's like, oh, this is good enough. And this is the person that's been doing the same workout routine, eats the same diet, has the same boring, even their relationship is fairly boring, and has become passive. Like, yeah, it's good, and good is good enough. It works. And there's no change. And one of my really early fitness mentors, he said, Ben, one of the reasons that people leave programs is not a lack of results, is they just get bored, and I was like, wow, that's actually such an important thing. So what happens if you've got lots of discipline but not a lot of self-leadership? You'll just end up being passive. So that was the relationship between those two very, very interesting parts of the 4-part model I've created. And this is forming the leadership training that I'm creating for leaders who want to go a mile deep into these areas, who want to become more self-led, who want to become more self-disciplined, who want to have self-development where they start to look at different models for thinking and growing and being in the world. And then finally, the self-love part. I'm excited about that, because that's the one that's really I'm really opening up to more and more as I'm exploring that, like being so loving towards yourself, the people around you, not just loving like being nice, but being kind and direct and really, really straight with people. And that, I just delivered an inner critic workshop the other day. And I realized this, even in this model, that if you've got self-leadership, but you're lacking self-love, you will become very critical. So you'll almost berate yourself, thinking that's how you're going to get on the path, or you're going to create the vision that you want to create. So if you've got self-leadership and no self-love, that's probably why you're like, right, I really want to go over this way, but come on, you know, and you give yourself a hard time thinking you're going to get there. And actually, when you develop self-love and self-leadership, not only do you get there easier, faster, and with less stress, is that you just have a way better time doing it. So you can hear about how all these interrelate over the next couple of podcasts. If you've enjoyed this podcast, if you've enjoyed watching it on YouTube or listening it on Spotify or watching it on Spotify, because you can actually watch my podcast in Spotify, I would love for you to do one thing for me. Just give it a rating. If it's a 5-star, that's fantastic. And if you could do a huge favor and subscribe to the channel as well, because if you're interested in this and you want to hear more about going a mile deep as a leader, how these 4 quadrants or these 4 areas of leadership pin together, follow the series, because I think you're gonna find out a lot about yourself that you'll be able to easily implement. Thank you so much for watching or listening to the episode, and we'll see you on the next one.